Welcome to this edition of the High Strangeness Factor, copyrighted on the Paranormal UK radio network. I'm your host, Steve Ward. As in real radio shows, we have a busy show today, so without any further preamble or introduction, I will introduce my guest. Amanda Raber is a lifelong experiencer of the paranormal and a UFO field investigator. She's no stranger to dealing with the unexplainable in everyday life, trying to find balance between the seen and unseen worlds, and to make sense of her own experiences as she also tries to decipher the Mothman and additional phenomena. Jackie Cucillas is a sharp researcher and analytical thinker. She is also highly sensitive to geomagnetic energies, astrology, and numerology. She has been interested in the Point Pleasant Mothman for years and has made several trips there, becoming fast friends with area residents, including the late Carolyn Harris, proprietor of the Harris's Steakhouse, aka the Mothman Diner. The relationship she shares with her husband Bill has several tie-ins to the Point Pleasant phenomena that was uncovered by author John Keel. Bill Cucillas is a long time independent paranormal researcher and has completed his PhD in psychology and has approached the Mothman phenomena through a psychological viewpoint. Bill is not an experiencer of the paranormal, but his intuition and perceptive faculties have increased the more he has immersed himself in the phenomena. Thank you all for being here tonight on the High Strangeness Factor.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. The first thing I want to do is remind people that you guys were on in, I think it was November. I think the first time you were on, and you are the Phenomenology Research Partners, your group. And so people should go back and check out that show. And it was very well received, by the way, one of my highest received shows since we went from Podbean to Spreaker, and which I always appreciate. I mean, I really appreciate it that people are actually listening to the show. And also, a little bit before that, Bill and I, we were on with Andy Mercer, and we did a show on psychology and the Mothman. So people need to go back and check out those shows when they can. So now I know that one of the reasons that we're doing the show tonight is Bill made a mention that you guys have, I know you guys are out there in the field a lot, not just in faraway places like Point Pleasant. So you guys have been doing some research lately in some different areas. Could you kind of give us an idea of what's been going on lately?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And again, thanks for having us on the show. Interestingly enough, the three of us have been kind of collaborating on some different things, really more Mothman related than other things. But in recent times, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, Amanda had brought to our attention that there's an alleged Serpent Mound in the Chicagoland area. And Jackie and I just decided to kind of hijack some weekend plans that Amanda had, and we hightailed it into the Chicago area. We're about 60 miles west ourselves of where Amanda lives, and we all kind of met in a place called Thatcher Woods. Amanda, would you like to speak a little bit about how that piqued your interest and how you started looking into that aspect of things?
Well, as it may or may not be known, there were several alleged reports of Mothman sightings in the western Chicago, the O'Hare Airport area. So when I was kind of researching that area, I kind of stumbled across in passing, an article mentioned that, oh yeah, and there's that old Serpent Mound in in Thatcher Woods, a couple miles south, and I'm like, wait, what? So I kind of dropped everything and started digging into this Serpent Mound that was found in the woods just outside of Chicago, like just outside of the city limits in River Forest is the name of the suburb. And it turns out that there have been a lot of mounds identified in the area, especially along the Des Plaines River, which is kind of a western border of Chicago. And so, yes, but
How long has this Serpent Mound been? How long have they been aware of it?
They've been, let's see, back in 1900, Albert Scharf mapped out all of the mounds and all of the Native American villages and sites in the area. So back in 1900, it was known.
Okay.
And then kind of forgotten.
So were there any efforts to not destroy some of the mounds, or have a lot of them been destroyed?
No, not really. No, most of them have been just bulldozed over or forgotten, like this Serpent Mound. In the 1930s, there was a geologist who lived in the river forest area, and she was out walking in the woods along the river and recognized a mound that looked out of place, and she recognized it as being a Serpent Mound. She mapped, her name was Isabel Wasson, and like I said, she was a geologist, lived in the area. She had it verified by the University of Chicago at the time that it was indeed a authentic mound. I don't know if Native American's even the right word, because the Potawatomi in the area, they weren't mound builders. It was someone before them. So we really don't know who made it, but it's there and it's been verified.
How distinctive is it? I assume it's not as defined as the Ohio Serpent Mound, or maybe it is.
Today, back then, I don't know, but today we had a hell of a time finding it.
Okay.
If we even found it at all. So after the 1930s, when Wasson identified it, there was going to be an effort to preserve it and maybe do some restoration at that time. But then, war and stuff got in the way.
Yeah.
Funds and attention were diverted, and nothing really happened with preserving the mound. And now some of the articles say that part of it was the head part was destroyed by trucks in the area. I guess there used to be a road going through there. So it's not what it used to be, for sure.
What's the surrounding area like now? Is it wooded, or what? Is it open? What does it look like if we were to look at it?
Well, just to the west, there's the Des Plaines River. Just to the east of the area is a suburb of River Forest. So there's just a patch of woods that goes along the Des Plaines River. And Jackie, Bill, any ideas how many fractions of a mile that area might be?
No. I was going to look up the acreage of the Thatcher Woods, but I don't know what that is. The mound itself is only 150 feet long. Mm-hmm. So the Serpent Mound in Ohio is quite large compared to this one.
Okay.
So I think that's part of the problem that we had trying to find it, because we're looking for a really defined Serpent Mound, and we did find some weird stuff while we were there. And I think that we actually were at the right spot, but we were looking for something different. And there was even at a point where we thought maybe they were trying to disguise it so people wouldn't do any more damage to it before it was restored.
Okay. Boy, that the whole area of northern, and maybe even further south, northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin seems to be full of mounds. And even through if you go up and down the Mississippi on the Iowa side as well, they're all over the place. You wonder how many have been destroyed. I've been able to visit some of the ones up and down the Mississippi, and some of them are pretty spectacular. But you just wonder how many have been destroyed. But what kinds of strange things did you find there? And also, did when the three of you were there, did you sense anything or pick up any kind of a a vibration, or for lack of a better word?
Well, when we went the first week, we were actually in the wrong area, and we gave it up for that time, for that week. But we decided to go back the next week. Amanda had found more information. It's kind of odd. We were both on the same path, but I was sleepy, so I thought I'd look at it later. But she found it, so that was awesome. So we went back and went to the area where we thought it was. But before I go into that, when we were in the wrong area the prior week, I had an idea of doing something that I've never heard of being done, and we really like doing our double blind spirit box sessions.
Now, is this? Did you guys see the Hellier documentary?
We did.
We have, yes.
We
And
did.
is this the same? When people see what they did there, is this kind of the same thing that you did?
It's close to the same thing, Steve, but what Jackie was trying to say, and we get kind of tripped up sometimes because we come up with a different name for it, but we call it a double blind, double ghost box session. And the way that goes down is one of us is interviewing the other two and asking questions while the other two are blindfolded, and they're getting the frequency and the different radio feeds and such. So it's kind of, I don't want to call it a free for all. It's not really that. But you're getting all kinds of data coming at you from two different sources, and we can't even really sort out what's being said until we watch the videos and hear the audio tapes afterwards.
Right. And on the first one, we didn't really pick up a lot of information. But when we went back and we were literally sitting in a circle of big rocks that had painted symbols all over them, Bill and Amanda were blindfolded and had on the noise canceling headphones, and I was asking the questions. And I didn't even get it while I was asking the questions and they were giving me answers. I was more trying to bring Isabel to try to give us some guidance, or find, how many feet or what direction we should head to, something like that. And we literally got the name of Bonnie from Amanda and Bland right after that from Bill. I asked what's your name, Bonnie, what's your last name, Bland, and later on realized that and 77 came after that too. And there's a Bonnie Bland that is from Alton, Illinois, who's 77 years old. And that Alton is where the Piasaw bird was located.
Right.
So there's another big bird story in our Estes session, another lead. So that was really kind of cool.
And even if I could, another 77. And Steve, I'm sure you know the significance of Route 77 in Parkersburg.
Oh, sure.
So that was just kind of a neat little correlation there as well.
And I slipped up. I called it an Estes session, but we've decided that we're going to call our method the Thatcher Method, because that's where we first used it.
Excellent.
Yeah. It's pretty neat because just statistically, and I'm so glad that Jackie thought to have us both hooked up to our ghost boxes. We weren't really planning on doing that until we got there, and like, oh, you got your gear? Yeah. You got your gear? Yeah. Let's both do it at the same time. Why not? But just statistically, that means we're going to get probably, there's a better chance of us getting something significant if there's two of us hooked up to the ghost box. And also, it was really cool that sometimes I went over the transcriptions of the sessions today, and it's almost like we're finishing each other's sentences at times. Or we're kind of going back and forth. One of us will say, oh, this thing happened, and the other one will say, oh yeah, that. Like there will be confirmation between the two people listening to the ghost boxes. And we did get at least one other name out of one of those sessions that I've been looking up, that I just looked up today. And it's an actual person and in the area. I'm not going to give out if he's still alive. But yeah, pretty interesting.
But it is interesting because here you've gotten specific feedback to document what you've come up with. It isn't, so often people will do these sessions and they'll get stuff, but who knows if it really relates to anything. I know that several years ago, I can't remember, it was a long time ago. It was with Rosemary Ellen Guiley and some of the old gang when we were down in Point Pleasant. They did a ghost box session near where the Silver Bridge used to span across. And I missed this. I had to go home. I had to work the next day. But they got information like they were gonna, like, Ingrid Cold was gonna meet them in the TNT area at 9 o'clock. Not in all in one sentence, but so they got all this information, and of course they went out to the TNT area, and Ingrid didn't show. I mean, he's just irresponsible like that, and always has been. But yes, it is significant that you found things that are beyond just a coincidence. I think that that made some kind of sense. So, did you do what other sessions have you done?
Well, we primarily did what we're talking about now in Thatcher Woods. We did that a couple of different times, 2 weekends in a row. And then the other sessions that we did really were, as a group, the three of us were limited to what we did last October when we were in West Virginia. So to kind of piggyback onto what you were saying about the session with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, the three of us, and the first ever Ghost Box session that I attended was right there at Tuendiwi, right there where the two rivers meet. And we were in the park and asking questions. And we didn't get Ingrid Cold, but we did get Cold. The name Cold popped up. And probably the oddest thing, and perhaps we've talked about this before, but the oddest thing I think from where I was sitting, well, Jackie was the only one that was really connected then, blindfolded with the noise canceling headphones. Amanda was asking questions and I was kind of peppering a couple in here and there, my very first time doing it. There was a ton of traffic, like fire engines, police cars, and ambulances that were going across the bridge heading over into Ohio right as we were asking these questions, and we got the word cold. So immediately I'm thinking somebody's in the river, but I don't even know what really happened. But that was the most bizarre one that we had there. And then, of course, when we were in the Charleston area, we had some really weird stuff happen.
What part of Charleston? I mean, was it what direction from Charleston? Just out of curiosity.
In the northern area of Charleston.
Okay. Because I went with again Rosemary and Guiley and a couple other guys. We, at the end of a Mothman festival, we heard about a lady approached us where they were having a lot of stuff happening just west of Charleston, and I won't give the location, but she had seen something like a Jersey Devil on the property, and we went there for an informal interview. And these people were, again, like they were finishing each other's sentences. They had all kinds of stuff going on, like classic UFOs, shadow people, haunting phenomena. It was mind blowing. And right next to this holler, they'd had all this stuff happen, and it was right near kind of a fairly busy 2-lane. So that whole area seems to be rich with that kind of thing. Anything significant that you found around the Charleston area?
Just get out of here. That was the weird.
Get out.
It was probably the shortest session we've done. And Jackie and I were asking the questions, and Amanda was blindfolded with the headphones on, and she was like lockstep with what was happening around us. It was really bizarre. At one point, she acknowledged that there was a man, and we looked back, and there was a man like staring at us. And then she said there's a woman, and there was a woman that was staring at us. And we had a really odd sensation, all three of us, like Jackie and I around the third eye, and I think Amanda like around the crown chakra. We had this sensation of being lifted up out of our heads, basically. It was a really odd, light, ethereal type feeling. And I started getting the heebie-jeebies. And at one point I asked if we should go, or perhaps Jackie asked that, one of us did. And within like 5-second delay, Amanda said, undeniable. So I started the car up, started rolling. She took the headphones off. What's going on, guys? And we just made a beeline out of Dodge. We just started leaving. It was really bizarre.
Now, was this man and woman, were they real? Were they actually
there?
there?
Okay. Saw them.
You can see them on the video. We started a Facebook page for the PRP, and we'll put little clips of what we've been up to up on the Facebook. We put just a section of that session up on Facebook, and you can see, I'm saying the man, the woman looking, and you can see the man and the woman behind us looking. And I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even know what I was saying. So when they started the car, I felt the car start. I'm like, okay, maybe they're turning on the air conditioner or whatever. I'm like complete sensory deprivation. I can't see anything. I can't hear anything other than the ghost box. So I'm
Now, you weren't missing your wallet afterwards, were you? just checking.
and, yeah, and then I feel the car move, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And yeah, they had to fill me in with what I just said and what was going on, because I had no idea. I just hear the stuff and say it and move on.
And Bill, you said that you had kind of a third eye thing going on, some kind of a sensation or something?
That's where I felt the sensation of being lifted up out of my head. I noticed it around the third eye area, but I think yours was the third eye area too, wasn't it?
I don't remember that. I thought it was more like where Amanda's was, up
So
in this area.
I guess the ladies more had their sensation like they were being lifted up around the crown chakra area from the top of the head. Mine was more the front of it.
What any ideas what that meant?
Well, I do remember, the one thing I do remember saying is I had said, I had heard, come with us or be with us. And right after that, that's when I started feeling like I was going up out the top of my head. And so that part freaked me out, because I hear be with us and I feel like I'm kind of leaving or going somewhere. I'm like, I don't know you. I don't want to go with you.
You mean like in the movies, the B movies, where the creepy apparitions say, join us,
Yeah.
that kind of thing?
Come play with us. Yeah.
Ugh.
No,
Oh, God.
no, thank you.
That area is a strange area anyway. We were there twice, and both times we were totally discombobulated. We literally were, the first time, basically turned around. We went and ate and turned around and went right back to Point Pleasant. And we were going to Charleston to see where the Elk Bridge collapsed.
Oh,
And
okay.
we completely forgot what we even went there for. And then the second time, when Bill starts the car, he puts in to go back to Point Pleasant. And it's like, no, we're supposed to be going downtown. So it did it to all of us. It kind of just like kind of wipes your mind or something. It's like very, very different type of energy there.
And for people that don't know, I forget the exact year, but the Elk Bridge collapsed on December 15th, right? The same date that the Silver Bridge did.
Yeah.
Which is just uncanny. It's just uncanny.
1900 what?
1904.
1904.
Mm-hmm.
So the years don't match up to anything, what somebody might think significant, like on a particular decade or whatever. But have you heard about there's a book called Haunted Valley, I think, that is a book of folklore at West Virginia, and they talk about strange birdmen that were seen around World War II, around the Elk River. It was they had about a 12-foot wingspan, man-like heads, red plumage, and supposedly they were seen up in the sky, and they people kept their children indoors for a while. It's just this brief mention in this obscure book on folklore. So it would be after that bridge collapse. So we may not be able to make a connection there. I'm not even sure that the Mothman apparition or whatever it was, is directly connected to the bridge collapse. Why don't while I'm on that, we'll go back to what your investigations. But what do you guys feel about that? People have a lot of different opinions about the things that happened in Point Pleasant during that year, and with the culmination of the collapse of the Silver Bridge. Do you guys have any feelings and intuition on that? If there was a direct connection with the things that people were experiencing that year?
Well, isn't that what we all want to know?
Yes.
I mean, for me, and I don't necessarily hold the same opinion as Bill and Jackie, from what I have learned so far, And again, this could change at any point as new information comes in, but I don't really see, other than time and place, a correlation between the two.
I'm in agreement with that, but I have talked to people that are really believe that they even believe that the Mothman caused the disaster. Some believe that he was a harbinger, that was a warning. What about you, Bill and Jackie? Any feelings, or is it just something that is sort of you're neutral on?
I at first, when I heard about Point Pleasant and the Mothman and stuff before we actually went there, I really thought that it was connected. But the more we investigate phenomena, it seems to me that it's not connected. And we talked to Jeff Walmsley, and he'll say, the different times the Mothman has been spotted since in areas close by, and people literally will go to Point Pleasant and say they saw the Mothman again. So if that's the case, why is the Mothman still around and the bridge is not? The bridge went down. We did have an idea of, this is just a theory, a far out theory. It's just an idea of things that we found when researching. The water panther stone that is in Tuende Way Park is the water panther lives underwater and is a protector of the water and of copper, and the thunderbird is the sky protector. Right. So if you take the underwater and the sky and they're battling, there's so much stuff, I don't even know how to put it all into words, but if they have this continual battle to protect their areas, is it possible that Mothman represented the Thunderbird and the Water Panther literally won that battle when he pulled all the cars down into the river?
Ah, interesting. It makes me think of the end scene of Lady in the Water, M. Night Shyamalan film. Did you ever see that? There's a big mystical battle there that make me think of it. But go ahead, Bill. You were about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that was probably, and we've been kind of cooking this theory up a little bit since we were in Point Pleasant the last time. And again, it's a theory, but the interesting thing about that Native American landmark that speaks about the water panther, Amanda's done some research to know more about the water panther than I do. But what Jackie was just talking about with this cosmic battle, allegedly, that the water panther and the thunderbird are eternal or mortal enemies or what have you, and the bridge maybe be getting caught in the crossfire. One of the things, and jump in here, Amanda, if you would, but my thought is, isn't copper supposed to be, weren't the cars that went down on the bridge constructed substantially of copper?
Yeah, and the water panther protects.
There was a copper component to those cars back then. And yeah, and the water panther is traditionally a protector of copper. And what mostly you see water panther imagery around the Great Lakes region, and the copper deposits are in the Great Lakes mostly. So it's kind of interesting that a water panther ended up the artifact that's in Tuende Way Park that they say is a depiction of a water panther was found in a neighboring town, actually, Leon, West Virginia. And so they put it in Tuende Way Park with not a whole lot of context. They're just like, hey, we found this thing. Here it is. Isn't this neat? And I never
that's opened up a whole area that I've never known anything about.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting thing too about Leon. The Mothman was spotted in Leon back in '66. So, I mean, you find the water panther on the stone there, and the Mothman was there also. So, is there a connection? Maybe.
Linda Godfrey was, of course, she's known for documenting sightings of the Dog Man. and she, by happenstance, was looking at a book on the mounds in southern Wisconsin, and she noticed that some of the clusters of the Dogman sightings were in certain areas of two different types of mounds. One was a Panther Mound, not necessarily water panther, and it's very simple. It's like if you drew a simple outline of an animal with a head and the two legs, the stumps or whatever, to signify legs and a short tail. And then the water spirit mounds, which are similar to that but smaller, but their distinction is they have a long pointed tail. So the Panther Mounds and the water spirit mounds are the areas where these Dogman sightings cluster. Now, I have no idea if there's any connection to the water panther or not, but I just found it interesting that there's that these sightings occur around these mounds. And of course, Keel talked about the strange lights seen near the mounds. What came first? Did they build the mounds, and then the thoughts, the tulpa, the consciousness form the lights, or did they form the mounds to acknowledge the phenomena of the lights?
Yeah, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Steve,
Right.
something you said a few minutes ago, that book that you were talking about that talked about the Birdmen, was The Hidden Valley, is that what that was called?
I think it's Haunted Valley.
The Haunted Valley, orange cover?
Yes.
So I think a couple of years ago, you might have shot me a picture of that on Facebook. At one point in time, you had. And one of the thoughts that you sparked when you were talking about that, and we were talking about the Charleston area and the Elk River Bridge in 1904, that's just really kind of bizarre, is that's around the same time that Aleister Crowley allegedly manifested the alien presence lamb or Aiwass at the Great Pyramid. And there's some theories that are out there that when he came to the States, that he was starting up these various Enochian Birdman cults, and that may have something to do with perhaps what happened with the Elk Bridge. So that's a theory that I've kind of been keen to, or at least interested in, the last few years.
And then another thing that may or may not be connected, the Van Meter visitor, the strange sort of a pterodactyl-like creature, which had very strange properties. It had a light shining from its head and could actually cause people to lose time or forgetfulness. That happened in 1903. Of course, that was quite a ways west in Van Meter, Iowa, which is west of Des Moines. So anyway, I got us off track a little bit with asking what you thought about the bridge collapse. The one thing, I always thought about the idea of a harbinger. They don't seem to be very, if this was a harbinger or other ones that are supposed to have occurred, the banshee and other manifestations, they don't seem to be very specific about what's going to happen. You would prefer something like a telegram saying, hey, the bridge is going to collapse on this particular time. We don't want some kind of a mystical image that we have to try to interpret. Because I remember that when John Keel was getting all these messages from people that firmly believed they were in contact with other intelligences, he thought there was going to be a disaster on the Ohio River, but he was convinced it was going to be one of the factories that was going to blow up or something, or disaster was going to happen there. And it's like he was misdirected. That was just very strange. But anyway, I got you guys off track from some of your investigations from in the Charleston area and others. Was there some other things you wanted to talk about in that area? Other investigations you've done outside of Point Pleasant?
Any thoughts, ladies, that you might have?
Well,
go ahead.
Before we went to Point Pleasant, Amanda had done a session with her cousin in a Chicago area and had gotten some interesting information, which 7-7 came up in that session also. So once we got to Point Pleasant, Amanda and I shot up to Parkersburg, which is right up 77. And we went to an intersection with two other numbers, which I don't want to disclose right now. I don't know. Do you care, Amanda, about disclosing where we went? Or
I don't want to give away anybody's address or anything.
Right. So, yeah. So we went to an intersection and did a session.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amanda. Go ahead.
So, well, yeah, this time with my cousin was my first time doing this double blind ghost box session, and we didn't really know what to expect. And I just felt like I was rambling, just saying whatever I heard. And when we got done, well, my cousin looked at me like I had two heads. she said, she said I was reacting to things in the area that were happening, and answering just too specifically. But I did say some things that just did not make sense at the time, like numbers, certain numbers as a place to go, as a place to visit, names that meant nothing to me, more numbers that didn't mean anything to me. So afterwards, I was a little disappointed that I didn't get anything really cool. But as I was going over the session and I started looking into things, okay, now it's starting to make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense in the moment, but you start doing some digging on these names and these numbers. Oh, these are actual people, either historical or living, that have some connection with what you're trying to learn. And these numbers are actual intersections where you can go. So anyway, that's what Jackie and I did. Went to one of these locations identified by these numbers and did a session there, and that just led to more more stuff that we later found out was significant.
So you're finding that I mean, I think some of these sessions that people go through, I think sometimes it does seem to be random and is perhaps meaningless. But you're not finding that at all. You're finding that when you pursue the numbers and the specific information that is coming through, it's something valid. It's something objective that you can relate something to.
It's like that leads us to the next spot. It's like a scavenger hunt almost. But yeah, if people just go to and do this method just to have fun or do something spooky, you're probably going to be disappointed. You got to be willing to take that information that you get and do some digging. And there are rabbit holes on rabbit holes on rabbit holes. So yeah, once you do that digging, things start to add up, and then so we're just kind of following these little breadcrumbs that we get, and they keep leading us to even cooler places.
Okay, I have a question for all three of you. This information that's coming through, where is it coming from? Is it sort of like if the remote viewers talk about the Matrix? You know, when they put their information on paper, they're tuning into the some people call it the Akashic records and so forth. What is it? Is it something like that? Is it? Are there entities giving this information? What any idea, any intuition as to what the source of this information is?
Well, we do set an intention before every session, just that we're if someone or something is trying to lead us astray or harm us, you're not invited to this party. Keep moving. But if you're an energy entity guide who truly wants to help, come on over.
So you do kind of do it's sort of a I don't know if you'd call it a prayer or not, but it's a means of kind of protecting you against being led astray. And I've seen people do that that do Ouija board sessions. Will do kind of a little meditation ahead of time that they won't accept any. You know, I'm not suggesting people do Ouija board sessions, but I've seen that kind of thing, that protective idea in that instance. So it's really a matter of setting. Getting your mind in a certain under a certain framework where you're at peace and won't accept incorrect or negative information.
Yeah, if you're gonna open yourself up, you don't want to just open the door and let whoever walk in.
Right.
You want to have a guest list. So we try and set a guest list at the beginning. And if there is a certain person, like for instance, Jackie was trying to maybe connect with Isabel Lawson, who identified the Serpent Mound in Thatcher Woods. She was trying to get Isabel to come through, maybe, or just kind of align with whatever guides or energies in the vicinity that want this information known. That's who we invite.
Okay, let me do my little break here, my intermission, and we'll get right back to it. You are listening to the High Strangeness Factor, copyrighted on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I am Steve Ward, and today I am talking to the Phenomenology Research Partners, Amanda, Jackie, and Bill. Before we move on to the three of us, and several other people are going to congregate in Point Pleasant toward the end of June. And I know you guys have got certain plans there. But I had a question for Jackie, and it was about numerology. What you mentioned that you study numerology, or are you a numerologist, or how do you view it?
I am not a numerologist, and
Okay.
I was studying it, but I'm not very good at it. I wanted to be good at it, but it's just not something that I literally need to use the book to work with it. So
and what is there a particular book you use as a textbook, or just...
Yeah, but Steve, I don't even know what it is. I don't have.
Okay.
I
That's all right. Well, yeah. My introduction to numerology is Glynis McCants on Coast to Coast AM, and it's always fun and always fun to listen to her. I found out I'm a 5 life path, born on a 5 day. Okay, which means she said in that case is what you see is what you get, but she also says that 5s. What is it? Drama comes into their life. They don't want drama, but they get drama. And I think that part might be true. But I was looking at one of these books, and I thought, well, some of this is some of the stuff that applies to me is kind of vague, like a horoscope in a newspaper. But some of it was so on point that it was just creepy as hell. So I don't know what I think about numerology. Do you think it's a legitimate science? I mean, can you really divine things from that or determine things from that?
I do believe that it's a legitimate science, and I was told Philip Clark, he is a retired Chicago Bears football player,
right.
Is really super into numerology, and I've had a discussion with him about it, and he said that none of us are given our names by chance. So that's one of those things, like you were just speaking of. Where is it coming from? Is it divine, intervention when you want to name your child something and something clicks inside of you and this is going to be the name instead, or you just automatically know this is this kid's name?
So it would be the idea, sort of, that whatever existence is within that, you can find the science of numerology. It's just the way things are, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. Okay, I was just curious because I don't know what I think about it, but I definitely have a little bit too much drama in my life. But so I have to see what I can do about that. Now, before we go on to the other to Point Pleasant, was there anything else that I missed or that you want to talk about that we have been covering earlier? Anything that maybe?
I've got a comment, Steve.
Yeah,
that was when you were asking where we think some of this inspiration might be coming from, and I was thinking, the obvious answer for me, and I would think for you, Steve, being a fellow Keelian, as we both are, would be, come on, dude, it's the super spectrum. That's where this
all right.
And the rational left brain side of me, which has become stronger over the years against my wishes, tells me maybe it's a bunch of gibberish. So I think, as a psychologist now, that am I trying to shape this stuff into something in a little box I want it to fit my own theory? Or is this something that's truly coming from, the Keelian part of me thinking, I just need to be open to this? And one of the things that I know Amanda and I talked about after I had done my second or maybe third ghost box session was the sense of peace that you get from doing a ghost box session. It's bizarre. And I'm kind of a novice meditator. I don't do a ton of it, but I try to do 10, 12 minutes a day. And I would say that the sense that I got of peace, especially in Thatcher Woods, from doing the ghost box session and just sitting there, not really thinking, but listening and then trying to speak what I think I'm hearing, it's really a neat experience. I guess for anybody who hasn't tried it, and I was really pretty skeptical going into it, for anybody who hasn't tried it, it seems to be very peace inducing. And I don't know about, Steve, you're talking about drama. I try to find peace in life as much as possible. So those are my 2 cents worth on where this might be coming from.
Well, you're probably better at avoiding drama than I am, but it's in the numbers. What can I do? But there's the super spectrum, but then there's that cosmic trickster that we have to watch out for. So, and of course, I said that lightly, but there was certainly a lot of that going on with Keel in the Mothman prophecies and in the those companion books, the Big Breakthrough and the Big Blackout, where something crazy was going on there. But anyway, we're going to be congregating in Point Pleasant, and did you have some particular? Were you going to do some of the same type of ghost box sessions down there? Is that what you had in mind?
Lord, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Absolutely. We're going to do that. We're going hopefully do some interviews for our other project, our main project.
Yes, tell us about that.
Go ahead, Bill.
Sure, I'm happy to. So, Steve, I know you and I have talked about this a couple times on the 2 shows that I have been a part of with you before this one. But in 2016, when Jackie and I met Carolyn Harris in Point Pleasant, and interestingly enough, prior to meeting Carolyn, we shot down to the main famous Serpent Mound. So Jackie and I were there first, but I wasn't like really engaged in a whole lot of the Serpent Mound thing at that time, just because I was just dead set on, I want to get to Point Pleasant. I got to go check out where it all went down. But to answer a question from maybe a few minutes ago, the Serpent Mound in the Ohio area is far more pronounced than what we're trying to identify in the Chicagoland area. But to go back to the project that we're working on now, so you knew that I was, when we talked before, was in the final stages of dissertation, finishing my degree after 10 years of one course per semester at a time.
Yeah.
Jackie and I, upon meeting Carolyn Harris, I really, a few months after we met her, really wanted to talk to her about her experience of the collapse of the Silver Bridge, because as she had shared with us, she lost a very, very young son on that bridge, and it was a horrible tragedy for her. And I really wanted to talk to her about that, and decided that I was going to call her. She gave us her phone numbers, and I was going to call her, but it was a day before Christmas when I made up my mind I was going to do this. Christmas, she fell ill the day after she passed away. And it was one of those things where a friend you had just met and only known for a few days, but you felt super close to, was gone. And coupled with the fact of that loss, also my dream of being able to interview her seemed to be gone as well too. And to that end, yes, we're not going to be able to do that, obviously. But Jackie and I had been talking for quite some time about using the research topic that I had for my dissertation, which is post-traumatic growth, and somehow coupling that with paranormal experiences. And as the 3 of us got together, shortly after I think we did our interview with you last, Steve, we came up with the idea to put a research plan together that's based around the post-traumatic growth that has arisen from the individuals who experienced the Silver Bridge collapse in that area in the 1960s. So that's what we're primarily focusing on right now, and trying to get as many people who were close enough to the Silver Bridge collapse to have been impacted by it in one way, shape, or form. We have 2 research questions. The first one is, what are the elements of post-traumatic growth for people who experienced the Silver Bridge collapse? And the second one, of course, is, because it's got to be about Mothman, what about the folks that experienced some of that phenomena as well? So we have about a half a dozen folks that have volunteered to be a part of the study at this point. We're shooting for 8 to 12 because that's kind of the gold standard in scientific research, at least from a qualitative or interviewing aspect, to be able to get enough data to come up with theories and really come up with these dimensions of post-traumatic growth.
Okay, so it's something where I don't know if you have expectations, or I guess you can't really in something like this because people are so different, and everybody's an individual, and everybody has a whole different life experience. So there's probably I don't know if you have any kind of expectations based on other studies or whatever as to what you're going to find.
And to answer that, Steve, as a scientific work, we have to bracket our own experiences and expectations out of the study, which,
Right.
I mean, you know me and you know Jackie and Amanda, we're really passionate about this stuff. So that's going to be challenging to say the least. But to do a legitimate scientific study, we need to perform it's a term that's called epique. It means you basically pull yourself out of the study and you've got to really get that data from those interviewers. We're going to use a series of 12 to 24 questions. They're open-ended, and then the interviews are going to be just based upon how they saw things, what they want to talk about, and we have to do our very best to not influence the outcome of what they say. Do we have expectations? We kind of do, just like I did for my dissertation. But the neat thing that happened in the dissertation was the stuff that arose I didn't expect was more interesting than anything that I ever expected.
That's great. What have you guys ever eaten at Village Pizza?
Not yet.
Okay, that's a landmark. It used to be Tiny's restaurant where they had a sighting of the Mothman that flew over, and it's also right on where 30th Street comes into the main drag, and that's where Grady was it. Oh gosh, not Dolly. Was it Dolly Grady? The next door neighbor of Mary Hires. They used to talk over the fence, and Mary would tell her stories about the strange men in black that showed up in her office. And it was a Dolly, I think. I guess it was Dolly Grady. And one time they saw a classic UFO right over their house there on 30th Street. And they called the police, and the police just kind of brushed it off. But that's the main thing you want to see when you get to Village Pizza is they've redone it now. But there's a table where they have different tables that are have photographs on them. One is full of like sports, the high school sports and everything, and one table is devoted to the Mothman. And you will actually see a photograph of me standing next to Nick Redfern at the Mothman Festival. So you'll definitely want to go to Village Pizza and eat at that table and just be enthralled by all the photographs of me laminated in the top of the table.
That's great.
Are there are there any other areas around Point Pleasant you want to explore? I know that I could never find them, but some of us went and we found some old cemeteries in the surrounding hills, which were pretty spectacular. Fighting ticks on the way. But are there any particular areas that you want to explore when you're there this time?
Well, there's caves behind the TNT area. I think I asked you about that previously, and you said you didn't know.
Yeah, sure. I don't know where they are.
But you did say you were willing to go in them.
I said that. Are you sure? Are you sure my lips were moving at the time? I'm not sure. That was, you got that from one of your Ghost Box sessions. That's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Steve Cave.
Do we know a Steve? Do we know a cave? I think we do.
Well, there is a cave that I sort of went into. It's on the if you get on the highway going to Charleston, and it's not very far out of Point Pleasant. If you look off the road to the north, there are some rocks there, big boulders and everything, and there's a kind of a depression. It's not a very deep cave, but we have gone. That's about it's just a few feet in. That's my kind of cave. You don't. It's all nice and lit up, and you don't have to worry about bats or spiders or anything like that.
Oh.
Flapping of wings.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Fluttering of black wings.
So, have you been out to the TNT at night?
No.
Well, brought Amanda out there the very first time that she saw it.
Well, we haven't been out of the vehicle in the TNT area at night. We have been out there in the vehicle with the windows up and the doors locked, yes.
Oh man, I'll tell you what.
And we were playing the audiobook of the Mothman Prophecies for Amanda's benefit.
Yes,
Oh,
but entirely for me, I'm sure.
as I recall, you were listening to the first chapter as you went out there.
Yes.
Yes, that
Perfect.
great first line about lightning and the surrealistic sky and like a grade B movie and all that stuff.
Yep.
Man, doesn't get any better than that. So what are any other, of course, we're going to congregate there. You're going to meet some other people. I'm hoping that Zelia and Lori, her mom, will be there. Brian and Terry Seach should be there. They've got their own experiments they want to run in the TNT area. So, and some of the other gang will be there. So it should be a lot of fun. We have just had so much fun there. Sometimes we'll go to a restaurant and you end up spending a couple hours just talking, forever about all these things. Is there anything else you wanted to cover about your plans to interview people or some of the things you want to do at Point Pleasant?
Well, I do think that last time we didn't do a Thatcher session because we didn't have it yet. We're going to do the Thatcher method, hopefully in the TNT area, and take the meter out there and see if we can find any anomalies with some other equipment also.
Okay. And are you going to do that Thatcher session at night?
Well, possibly Amanda and I might, but I don't think that we'd have anybody asking questions because I'm pretty sure Bill won't do it.
You should do one in the daytime and one at night. We on November 11th, 2011, we all went out there, the gang, Rosemary, Ellen Guiley, and so forth. We went out there at 11 in the morning and 11 at night. And that's when Rosemary and another lady were picking up what they thought were shadow people in the area. So, if you can go out there and do one of these sessions while shadow people are around, it might get kind of lively.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'll talk to a shadow person.
Oh, you tell me more.
Oh no, I'll talk to them.
Oh, you'll talk to them.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you were talking about the stuff that goes on in your house because last time you talked about all those little creepy shadow things that run all over the carpet,
Yeah, no, they just freak me out. They won't talk to me.
If we were going to do a session and have it to a certain time, we most likely would have to start it at 3:33 and end it at 4:44. Because 3:33 is my number that I see constantly, and Amanda is with the 444s recently. So
I see the 444s all the time.
Yeah.
444, etc. Well, what I thought I'd do now is of course we've talked a lot about John Keel, and especially the first time we got together. I just wondered. I'm sure that you guys have read all kinds of other books, and there's other researchers that have inspired you, and there's other areas that you've explored. I just would kind of like to open it up, and if the three of you could tell us some of the other areas you've explored, some of the other authors that have inspired you or educated you in the paranormal.
How much time we got, Steve?
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Okay. I mean, a very nice person has been giving us access to all sorts of cool books lately. And I just got done reading The Rebirth of Pan.
Okay, I've actually not completed it myself. So what did you? I know it. I've read parts of it. It's a long story. It's very hard for me to finish a book these days. But what was your overall impression of it?
I mean, to me, it solidified things that I've kind of been almost thinking for a while.
Yeah.
Like, I was almost to some of these thoughts, but not quite there. And then Jim Brandon, the author, he said it. He said it. So yeah, it was very cool to read this.
Is there any doubt in your mind that he must have been inspired by John Keel?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right? Does
Oh,
he quote Keel in this? No. That's I've also started on the archetype experience, resolving the UFO mystery and riddle of biblical prophecy using C.G. Jung's concept of synchronicity.
yes.
He references Keel a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I first got that book. I saw it was an ad in a magazine. This is like over 3 decades ago, back in the old days before the internet, and I was really fascinated when I read it. But go ahead with what you were saying.
Oh yes, Gregory L.
Yeah, Dr. Greg Little.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, it's funny. He speaks highly of Keel, but just ripped his super spectrum theory apart.
Really?
Yeah.
See, it's been so long, I don't actually remember that, but
yeah, he goes through a lot of different theories and then gives condescending names to those theories. I mean, all of this, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's just,
sure,
it's just fun that these thoughts are in writing. Some people think enough about this stuff to put it in print, and then other people buy it. That's what's very cool to me.
Well, he also wrote one that I really like called I think it's The People of the Web, which connects UFOs and mounds and everything. By the way, so people will know, I did contact Greg Little, and the archetype experience, The People of the Web, and another early one he wrote, which I think might have been called The Grand Illusion. I'd have to check on that. They're all going to be reprinted. I'm not sure how soon, but these books have been out of print forever, and you have to pay exorbitant prices to get them from third-party sellers these days. So, but anyway, you're enjoying Greg Little's works?
Absolutely. People of the Web is next on my list.
And what about and are there any other books? I mean, not just necessarily the ones that nice man sent you, but what about? There's Zelia Edgar and I. She invited me to do one of her shows. We did a 2-parter where we just talked about some of the books that we've read and inspired us. And it was a couple hours between the two of them, and we left out all kinds of people. We just didn't have time for everything. So what other kinds of authors have you read? Jacques Vallée at all?
Oh yes, I just got done with Passport to Magonia right before I started Rebirth the Pan.
And what was your impression of that?
Honestly, that kind of has melded with Rebirth the Pan in my mind. They were pretty similar subject matters to be reading at the same time or that close together.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that was great.
I was impressed by there's a major theme in that book is that he goes back to Evans Wentz, who wrote The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, and this came out about 1911. Mm-hmm. And he went around interviewing people in Ireland to talk about their one-on-one experiences with the fairies, with the little people, same way that we go around and talk to people about their Bigfoot or UFO experience. And these weren't just tales handed down from generation to generation. These are people that claimed that they had, one-on-one experiences with the little people. Mm-hmm. What about you, Bill and Jackie? Any books, any researchers that have guided you or inspired you?
Well, Steve, I've got my list here.
Oh, all right.
And I pulled up my iPhone. Both of us did. Jackie and I did. We're sitting right next to each other. And of course, as soon as I tell you that I've done this, I clicked on one of them and my phone is moving slowly. So I'm having a tough time getting back to the library. But what I can tell you I've been reading lately has been, Amanda had turned us on to a book which is about self-initiation into the Golden Dawn tradition, which is just absolutely fascinating. I'm not that far into it, maybe a couple hundred pages. It's probably 600 or 700 pages long, but it's got all these different foundations for a lot of these different secret societies and religious systems that have been part of the mystery schools for ages and ages. That one's been a blast to read. I'm kind
What's
of
the name of that one?
it's called Self-Initiation into the Golden Dawn Tradition.
Okay.
That one you can literally feel the energy coming from the pages, I swear.
So that's one, Steve. And I've got I wanted to get really well versed in the whole, research methodology of phenomenology because that's what we're doing. And so I'm reading one of the foundational texts about that, which is Phenomenological Research Methods. And that's by a guy by the name of Clark Moustakis, who was really foundational in psychological and sociological literature. So I'm kind of brushing up on that. But I'll tell you the fun stuff that I've read has been The Book of the Law by Crowley, Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. That one is fascinating. I've got a bunch of books on positive psychology, all of Keel's library, most of Gray Barker's library. That's to me, that's where it really all started is with the Keel stuff. Brad Steiger comes at things from a really interesting angle as well. Real encounters, different dimensions, and otherworldly beings. That's definitely worth a read or a listen to.
Some of his, I was fascinated by. He had a book called Shadow World, and what did he call interlopers? I think it was. He told story after story of people that kind of show up out of nowhere wearing strange clothing, and then they just kind of disappear into somewhere else, or the stories where people go into a restaurant or stop at a store or whatever, and then it's not there the next time they go. Those stories are just fascinating. He's covered a lot of those. What about you, Jackie?
I was trying to think back when I started really reading stuff that influenced my thinking. Honestly, I literally love to read astrology books because it's kind of like numerology. It just works. So I do read a lot of astrology stuff and reincarnation type of stuff, like Many Lives, Many Masters. And I mean, other books too that I can't even remember the names of right now. But I'm currently reading what am I currently reading?
You're just like me. I'm currently reading about 30 books, and then I'll freak.
My
Did you
pile
ever?
of books on the other side where I can't get to because my kitten's laying on my lap, so I can't see. I am reading Albert Bender. What's the name of that? Something about
Flying saucers
Flying.
in the sun.
yeah.
Oh
And
man, what do you think about that one?
that guy's a weirdo. Or to
Well,
use him for a wackadoo.
yes, kind of a nut bar. Of course, he was first talked about in Flying Saucers and Three Men by Gray Barker, and he doesn't really get too much into the story. Then finally, supposedly, he writes this crazy story about the visitors from Kazakh, and they want the salt out of our oceans or whatever, and there's men in black that they're like apparitions. They show up and I don't know, but it reads like bad amazing stories, science fiction from the 40s. I mean, there were some good authors there, but some of them were just awful stories. And I think, man, but the thing is that he apparently, according to Gene Steinberg, he went around doing a few lectures, and he stood by that story for a while. But then he moved out to California, he and his wife, and wouldn't ever talk about it again. He actually became somebody that was would restore lost film soundtracks. He's the one that was instrumental in restoring and getting the original soundtrack to King Kong out there. So his whole life changed. But I just wonder if he would have ever come clean and said, "Yeah, I made it all up."
Hey, Steve, there's another aspect of some of the research I've done over the years, really more a few years ago than currently, but it kind of laid the foundation for the way I look at the world. And there's one, I've done a lot of work with the secret societies. That stuff just fascinates me. So one of them that jumped out to me that I wanted to share with you is by an author of the name of Mark Booth. Are you familiar with Mark Booth?
No, I'm not.
So he has a book called The Secret History of the World as Laid Down by the Secret Societies. I mean, it's kind of a corny name for a book, but it was a real eye-opener. And it really didn't talk about Illuminati, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism. It didn't really go into that. He just kind of painted with more of a broad brush where he talked about basically the teachings of the mystery schools and some of the things that they talk about, which I thought was fascinating. And of course, I've read Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike as well too.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really cryptic, but fascinating.
You've read that whole thing?
Yeah, I have.
Well, that's huge. Okay.
It's massive. Oh, and before I stop talking about big books, Jim Peniston's most recent work is excellent as well, and it's called the Rendlesham Enigma.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's a 700 and some page book.
I'm really enjoying this because you guys are bringing up a lot of books that I'm not familiar with. I'd like to continue on this for a while. The three of you, any other books you've been reading, or when you mentioned, I think the Trojan horse, I think, came up at some point, but it was Magonia. I mentioned last time that Trojan horse was the book that really influenced me, and that was a few years before Mothman Prophecies came out. And then I was barely recovering from that, and I read Passport to Magonia. And that just really those two books just completely changed my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, but here's another question I've got. I know I'm going all over the place, and I'd like to get back to the books in just a moment. I've had for a long time. Well, I started out, as you know, I was an ET guy, heavily influenced by the books by Jim and Cora Lorenzen from APRO. They were the ones that were to first cover a lot of the landings and people seeing entities in conjunction with the craft. And then, being introduced to Keel, he opened up the idea of, transmogrifications of energy, of things not being exactly what they're seen. They seem to be. And of course, Carl Jung and his idea of the collective unconscious. And so for a time, I completely rejected the ET idea, even that there were any other intelligences among us. But I've changed that now. There's certain things I've come across where I also firmly believe that we are dealing with some other intelligence. I mean, a real physical intelligence. I don't know if it's ET or extra dimensional or whatever. Do any of the three of you have any sense of how to balance that? We're all kind of disciples of John Keel, but how do you kind of put all that together? Do you have any or do you just kind of suspend judgment and just keep researching?
I mean, for me, I don't think, people talk about the unified theory of UFOs or unified theory of weirdness. I don't think there is any one thing that's going on with the UFOs. I think probably some of it's super spectrum, maybe some are from outer space. I don't know, but there's so much variance in descriptions of what we describe with an umbrella term of UFOs. I don't think it's all the same thing. I think there's a few different things going on, and we don't know what any of them are.
Right, but I know from last time you said you had kind of a neutral view to the whole thing, and you were willing to. I think you were willing to go along with a cogent argument in one way or the other. So I'm in that situation too, where it seems like both have to exist. I mean, there's this. I don't know, paranormal mimicry or whatever you want to call it, where we seem to be. Some of the manifestations seem to be co-creators with it, or it kind of goes along with our collective expectations. Like the strange lights, the airships, and then the more modern view of UFOs. But what about the rest of you guys? Any thoughts or? Oh, go ahead.
Just to end cap what I
yes.
just said. And yes, previously I had said that my stance is I suspend judgment. I don't know. And I guess what's changed now is I know even less. I've realized that what I thought I knew, I know even less. It could be way more things that I don't know about.
That's true. Every time you kind of get a grasp on something and something kind of makes sense, and then it just all goes to hell.
No, I don't know.
One of the things I was thinking, Steve, when you were talking a few minutes ago, was that, again, going back to that Mark Booth book about the secret history of the world, he actually says that the ancients, like the ancient Greeks, Egyptians, what have you, their whole thought when it came to ideas was that ideas came to them. They weren't really innate of them. So they were things that were kind of out there in the air that would manifest in our minds, but they were really things that were outside of our own consciousness, which I think is, I'm not saying that I totally agree with that, but I found it to be a really fascinating way to look at where ideas come from.
So ideas are not our own.
That was what Booth had said about the ancients, yes.
Well, that would go along with some of the there was the New Thought movement before the turn of the last century. A lot of the positive thinking stuff, where they talk about the idea of infinite intelligence, that some people would call it God, of course, or whatever that source is, but that infinite intelligence, that divine principle is there, and those thoughts can emanate from something like that. Do you think that's what they were talking about, or something similar?
I don't know that they were specifically talking about that, but what you just said opened me up just to the thought of prayer and meditation. And regardless of what an individual's belief system is, I found through practical experience that prayer and meditation opened me up to things I wasn't even thinking about before I performed whatever that act was, even if it's just sitting still for 10 minutes and keeping my mouth shut and trying to quiet my mind down. Things do come to you. So, is that some type of a super spectrum injection that you're getting? Is it a spirit that's communicating with you? Is it something coming out of your own consciousness because you shut down that mechanical part of your brain and it's coming up from different parts of your thinking process? I don't know, but I know that I get different inspirations from both of those practices all the time.
Let's see. Some of the authors that I have been inspired by. Have any of you read other books that Jacques Vallée has written, other than Passport to Magonia?
I have not.
Okay.
We haven't either.
It's got some great stuff. Messengers of Deception. He's got his Forbidden Science volumes, which cover. He's got 4 of them out now: the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And these are his edited journals that. You go through the history of when he met Dr. J. Allen Hynek and the swamp gas fiasco. And then later on, when Hynek starts the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois. And you get his viewpoint on some of the various people in ufology. And it's just absolutely fascinating. I have read all of the 1970s and parts of the 1960s and 1980s. It's just really good stuff. And he wrote a couple other books. He had one, I think, was called On the Edge of Reality, with it was kind of informal conversations with Dr. Hynek. So that's another great one to pursue. And another individual that was a sort of a colleague of Keel, although they corresponded, was F.W. Holliday. And he's the guy, he has has sort of a connection with Aleister Crowley as well, because Crowley bought that house on the shores of Loch Ness. Mm-hmm. And some people believe that his incantations or whatever had something to do with the manifestation of the creature. But Holliday started out believing it was just kind of an oversized slug, and then it started to become to believe that it was some kind of a psychic projection. And he looked at all the different things that were going on at the same time, UFO reports, and he even had an experience with an apparition, a shadow person or a man in black on the shores of Loch Ness after he and Dr. Donald Ormond tried to exorcise the beast from the loch. It's a fascinating story. This is a book I want to try and get you guys, is his first book is The Orm of Loch Ness, and then The Dragon and the Disc, where he gets into the more paranormal aspects. But then he tried to do the unified field theory of the paranormal. He didn't feel he succeeded, but it's called the Goblin Universe. And that's one that's really, for a mere $800, you can get it online. But that's one I'm going to try and get you guys. But any other? Go ahead, Bill.
I'm just glad you got so much money to burn, Steve. If you're going to spend $800 on a book.
Yeah, well, some cats got it and some cats don't, Bill. Actually, I'm a cat that doesn't have it. So, unfortunately, I bought the book when it was, at its normal cover price many years ago. So, I was safe there. But any other books and what about other any areas of research or interest that you have beyond what we've been talking about?
Well, I guess for me, definitely it's all about post-traumatic growth, because that was something that I studied, throughout the last 5 or 6 years. And I just really like the concept of being able to overcome life's obstacles, the hurdles that we have. When we clear those, the insights we gain and just the knowledge we attain and the way we can help other people with the things that we've learned. That's a fascinating area of research for me. And I've done tons of it over the last 5 or 6 years.
So are you talking about a situation where people are, because of the trauma or the situation, they're kind of stuck in their life, and when they can overcome that, they're kind of freed to not just to have personal insights, but to get on with their life?
Absolutely. And I think, as we talked about a few shows ago, my dissertation was about post-traumatic and growth and divorce. And I was one that went through a very long and painful and expensive divorce prior to Jackie and I getting together, obviously. And in going through that process, when all the chips are down and you're facing mounting legal bills and just all kinds of craziness going on in the court system, as only the court system can dole out, what you learn, or at least what I learned, and the guys that I interviewed for my dissertation learned, was they had strengths that developed because they kept on keeping on. And my hope with actually the book that I'm writing right now, which is about post-traumatic growth and divorce, is to inspire people who are maybe in the midst of it and thinking it's never going to end, like I was at one point, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And then for the guys and ladies who maybe have kind of given up on life because their ex-spouse ruined them and financially they're devastated and emotionally they'll never heal and all these things, point them in the direction of the experience to some of the folks that I've been able to work with also and talk to and see where they can actually grow as a result of some of the stuff they did. And that dovetails really well into the whole Silver Bridge collapse. Look at what Point Pleasant has done as a result of having that horrible tragedy happen, and now they're becoming a thriving community. And there's just all kinds of examples of that in the human experience that I think are so important.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it sometimes it's just an individual or a small handful of individuals. You look at the Walmsley family and look at what Jeff has done with just that Main Street and his daughter Ashley. I mean, it's just phenomenal what the way they have turned around that town. Just if if it wasn't for that family, where would Point Pleasant be right now?
And speaking of the Walmsleys, what classy people they really are. Humble, good-hearted people. I'll tell you, when we got invited to present at the Mothman Festival, this was not something that we thought was going to happen. I actually reached out to Ashley, who we've gotten to know the last couple of years, really know Jeff a whole lot better, but had a conversation with Ashley, I think the day or two before we met you, Steve. And we started talking about looking at Mothman through a psychological lens. And I happened to contact her like 3 weeks ago. And I said, hey, Ashley, we're looking to get some people to participate in a study that we're working on. And it's exactly what you and I were talking about, looking at the Mothman phenomenon through a psychological lens. And she said to me, you know what, that sounds great. Let me get a hold of Dad. This sounds like a great topic for the Mothman Festival. And we got invited without asking for it. We did.
Oh, that's great. And if with a little luck, if I'm the guy to do the introducing of the speakers, I may be the guy introducing you. So you better treat me right.
Well, remember, Steve, like at the beginning part of our conversation before you started recording, The last name is pronounced co-hostless.
Okay, got it. Well, it's a lot of fun to speak at the. Now you guys have not been to a festival, right? Is that or
No,
have
we've
you?
never even been to the festival.
Oh my God! Well, listen. You have got to you've got to get your tickets early. The only thing you have to pay for there is the hayride. You've got to get to the booth early and get your tickets. Okay, and then that night you've got to have to wait. There's going to be three hayride, three caravans, whatever you want to call them. Jeff, of course, and me and Brittany and. But you're going to have to wait for mine. I'm going to be selfish, and I want you to be on my cart for my tour that night.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Yes, and the other thing I wanted to say about the Walmsleys, when I was asked to do an interview for Seth Breedlove's the Mothman Legacy, which is the sequel to the Mothman of Point Pleasant. He told me that the Mothman Legacy, that the legacy part was the legacy of the Walmsley family because of what they have left for all of us for all time, establishing this great museum, all being part of you've got the statue, you've got the festival, and all the trappings. It's really Jeff and Ashley Walmsley and their entire family that have done that. So it's kind of a tribute to them, the legacy part of it. I guess we're about ready to wrap up. But please, if there's anything else you want to talk about, or anything I've missed, or anything we didn't cover as well as you would like to, we can do that now.
Steve, one thought that I wanted to share is
Okay.
that when we met Carolyn Harris, and then as I mentioned, I was really hoping to be able to talk to her again. We didn't get that opportunity. Then she'd passed away. I contacted Jeff, who I kind of met fleetingly on that trip. We talked just a little bit. We clicked, but we hadn't become friends yet. But it was due to getting to know Carolyn, and then through Carolyn and her passing, getting to know Jeff. That's how this whole Phenomenology Research Partners thing has come to where it is. So when you talk about the legacy of the Walmsley family, I mean, he basically, from our very first time to get together a year later, sat down to dinner with us. It's like we were family. He's just one of those kind of guys, and he's so inclusive of everyone, and just such a kind-hearted guy. He's just really helped to get us connected to the community in Point Pleasant in ways we never would have without him.
And you're going to be impressed when you see him at the festival. He doesn't have a free moment. He's got this little walkie-talkie permanently in his hand, constantly talking to people, constantly making sure things are going right. He's got a great team of people, the local people in the city there that set up all the tables and the booths, and they have all the wiring run for people that need stuff at their tables. It's just phenomenal. It's got that, you get down there, and I always go down a couple days earlier. We're usually in there setting up in the TNT, but you'll see magically the Main Street transform with all the booths and everything getting ready for the festival, and you're just going to really absolutely love it.
I just got really excited. Like, I was excited, but I'm like,
it is so much fun. I actually have so many responsibilities now that I can't be the happy-go-lucky guy that just buys stuff, So, even though I'm a man of wealth, great wealth, Bill, I don't have time to spend all that money now because I have so many responsibilities. But
honey, we'll buy
speaking
you.
of buy, I'm sorry, Amanda. Go ahead.
Give us some money. We'll take care of it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very thoughtful. Okay, would you guys?
Stuff, Steve. I would just want to say that yes. Amanda and I have started designing a line of merch for people, and you can find a link to that on our Facebook page or on our website, phenomenologyresearchpartners.com.
Yes, and is that the your contact info? Is that what you want to give the phenomenologyresearchpartners.com?
Or the Facebook page, Phenomenology Research Partners.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And is there any other contact info we should have for you guys? I mean, you're all on Facebook, right?
Yep, we're all on Facebook.
We're all three of us pretty active consumers of Facebook. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, it's always so much fun to have you guys on the show. And we've had just great sessions not being on the show that I wish people could hear, with a few things deleted because, we talk about secret stuff sometimes. But I really, really appreciate you guys being here tonight.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having us again.
Okay, I will. I'll do my closeout, and then we'll talk for a little bit afterwards. Again, a thank you to Amanda, Jackie, and Bill. And this was a really a fun show tonight. The High Strangeness Factor was created by Steve Ward and Andy Mercer and is copyrighted by the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I want to thank our fearless leaders, Irene Allen Block and Mark Johnson, here at the network. I also want to thank Andy Mercer in his capacity as producer and co-host for the show. Brian Zeller created the theme music and is also my unofficial ombudsman. You can also hear me weekly as a correspondent on Mac Maloney's Military X-Files, where I do a fringe report, and it's on this same network. And I am Steve Ward, your humble host here on the High Strangeness Factor, a displaced Yank here on Paranormal UK Radio. Thank you for listening. I will see you all again in a fortnight. Take care. And we're out. Well, thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to stop recording.